Regenerative Adjusting. We'll be talking about cannabis insurance. I'm Chantel Roberts, and I'm joined by Melissa Roeder, who is an attorney at Foley and Mansfield. Melissa, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here. I have my magical zebra corn shirt on to celebrate.
Yeah,
very cannabis-esque. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say it's kind of like Puff the Magic Dragon, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, which I totally did not know was about cannabis until I was an adult, apparently. And I'm like all singing, like "Let's Get High" song or whatever when I was 5. But did I just hate myself? I don't know. Anyway, we'll move on.
We'll move on. Yes. So channeling my current Puff. Yes. Exactly. 2021 Puff.
Exactly. So, Melissa, full disclosure, we know each other from the cannabis industry as we attend the same and we speak at the same seminars and webinars. So I'm going to set you up with some hard-hitting questions. First, this is, I think it's going to actually be set out, released on April the 13th, but we're talking about April the 16th, which is National Wear Your Pajamas to Work Day.
Yeah.
So we are in our pajamas right now at work. So what does cannabis and pajamas have to do with one another?
Oh, yeah. Pajamas and cannabis hand in hand. Can you think of a better way to sit on a couch and hang out and play a video game and eat your best Dorito chip? No, this is good stuff. Exactly. They both bring comfort potentially. I think they're very medicinal. And so when I'm having a bad day, I put on my pajamas. So they're a perfect match.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And when you're partaking, not that I personally would know, being in Kansas, where it's totally not legal, but I've had friends, who say when we take marijuana, smoke it, eat it, whatever, they want to put on their pajamas. So like I said, it goes hand in hand.
Perfect fit.
So that I have a big issue with using the word cannabis for marijuana. And, the cannabis industry wants to use cannabis in exchange of marijuana because my problem is that using the word cannabis for marijuana can create some confusion when it comes to insurance coverage. So can you tell me what is, quote, cannabis?
Yeah. The good analogy is if I go into a bar and I order wine, and what am I going to get? I'm not really sure. I might get red wine. I might get rosé. I might get white. I might get sparkling. There's so many different options and there's different types of things. So cannabis is this, when I was in 8th grade, my professor, teacher, Mrs. Sievert, taught us kingdom, phyla, class, order, family, genus, species. And so I always remember that and I have to sing it. So we're looking at, this plant family and under there, this cannabis, but it's such a generic term. Other than it is a type of plant, that's really all that defines it. So we have to, stretch down and see what type of plants are under this category. And there we have marijuana. There we have hemp, and there we have variations of the two. There's crossbreeding here as well. So being specific in your language is very important for coverage, for figuring out the kind of policy you may be getting, for figuring out the exclusions and a policy you may be paying good money for. And also just as simple as you're going to go order something, if you go into a dispensary, if you want to get a product, what are you ordering? And some has psychoactive effects and some don't. So it's very, very important to know what you're talking about versus kind of getting what I call almost lazy in the language of just using cannabis.
Right. And how do these words and definitions impact the coverage of insurance, the insurance coverage, as you kind of mentioned that, and we've talked about previously how if you use the word cannabis, you could be excluding hemp, which you would want to cover, for example. You could be excluding CBD when you're trying to exclude marijuana. So how do these words and definitions impact insurance?
Let me give you a real case to show you an example. So in 2012, there was a case, Tracy in Hawaii. Tracy was the policyholder against USAA, who was the insurance company. And Tracy had a fire and her personal marijuana plants, which was legal in Hawaii in 2012 for personal use, for medicinal use, was legal. So she had $45,000 worth of plants destroyed. So she made a claim under her policy under the plant and shrub provision. Cannabis is a plant, right? It sounds reasonable. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, coverage was denied, and that was upheld because when the policy was sold, the plants the insurance company wasn't contemplating plant being a cannabis. So, but why get into litigation? Why not be very specific about what we're talking about? So hemp is something, it is legal. It is off Schedule 1. You can have it in every state in the US. Marijuana, you can have it in 33 states medicinally. We actually might be up to 34 with the 2020 election. We are up to 34 and 16 states for adult use and Washington, D.C. So if you don't want to have misunderstandings, and especially if you're drafting the policy, you're responsible for that language you put in there. Be specific. Use marijuana. Use cannabis. Don't use cannabis. Use hemp. Use CBD. Just choose what you're going to insure and what you aren't going to insure.
I totally agree with you. And I think I had just written an article that got published December, I think it was, or something like that. And I took the word cannabinoid, for example, and totally took it all the way out to left field so we could show the insureds and the attorneys and even the insurers how ludicrous that this could be. And so, for example, I said, you need to be really specific in your language to avoid misunderstandings and coverage issues, because just looking at the word cannabinoid in policies, that can mean cinnamon. Who doesn't have cinnamon in their kitchen? Who doesn't have cloves in their kitchen? Who doesn't have nutmeg or black pepper in their kitchen? Yes. And, I'm being a bit facetious here, but when I go downstairs for my lunch break, because I work from home, so my kitchen would be part of my work office space, and I slip and fall or whatever, is my workers' comp going to exclude my claim because I've got cannabinoids in my kitchen? And it's totally left field, but this is what attorneys deal with. They deal with words, and I would love to put myself out of business as an expert witness to say, y'all need to be real specific. I know you don't want to use the word marijuana because all of us have been taught, oh, it's a bad word. It's a, just say no to drugs. It's a gateway, blah, blah, blah. But, what do you think about that? Being real specific, maybe reclaiming the word marijuana.
Yeah, and if you want to get around that, then let's just talk about, really, it's a psychoactive property, right? That is what we have the issue with, the THC. So if that's the concept, then let's go into the definition sections of the policy and define what level of THC you will allow and what you won't allow. Is it this 0.3 level? So we all have a definitions section in these policies. So if we're going to really need to get specific, let's just say what we're talking about and put it up in there.
Yeah, that's a really great idea, because the policy that I had been quoting in this particular article was talking about natural and unnatural or synthetic cannabinoids. And I'm like, well, okay, cinnamon and black pepper and nutmeg and star anise, they're all natural. So we need to even be more specific than just saying any and all cannabinoids or any and all, cannabis or whatever, because any and all cannabis means CBD. And you may be insuring a CBD distributor. And if an adjuster is going to be going by the letter of the policy, they're going to deny the claim, which maybe the underwriter didn't mean to do, and then you've got illusory coverage.
Yeah, even when you're talking about hemp, and so when you go into the cannabis and go down to the next genus, and we're looking at whether it be marijuana or it be hemp. But you can have hemp from a marijuana product. It just doesn't have enough THC to qualify as marijuana. So even when you use this term hemp, it can still be gray. So it sounds like, with the more specificity, the more clarity we're going to have for everyone. I think it benefits everyone.
Oh, absolutely. You had mentioned the 2020 election. So what's going on in the cannabis industry now, meaning like all of cannabis, marijuana, hemp, CBD, all of them?
Yeah. Big picture, we're going to see more legalization. I think we're going to have Virginia coming up here in 2021 for adult use. I certainly think we're going to see New York in 2021. So it's growing. I think the FDA, the FDA is getting pushed to start doing some testing and authorizing. I don't know if your audience knows, but do you know that you can't actually legally sell a CBD product if you're going to ingest it? And so everything.
I know that, of course, but I don't know if the audience does. And and the vlog is for lay people as well as for adjusters. And I brought my little can here, and I don't know if you can see it, but I went to our local, what's it called? Coffee shop, and they're selling this. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so illegal. They don't even know it, but it's almost like anybody sees CBD and
they want it.
And they're like, oh, CBD is totally legal because there's no THC in it, blah, blah, blah. But it's not legal if you're going to put it in some kind of food stuff or whatever. And so I bought it. I tried it. It was terrible. But not from, it was just coffee, and I'm not a big coffee drinker. So I'm sure that this is fine. But anyway,
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead. I interrupted. I wanted to do my show and tell.
It was perfect timing. Yeah, we're like this today.
Yeah, I know.
The FDA is trying to stop this production, and it does. It has to some. Charlotte's Web is one that is big enough that has caught their attention. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has done some fining, sending out monetary fines to some of these companies, but it's too big. It's too massive. They can't control it. And so if you can't control it, then on the end of stopping the production, then let's get it authorized. So we're going to see banking. We're going to see decriminalization, I believe, will happen very soon. Kamala is all over that. Joe is behind her. Are we going to see descheduling? Maybe rescheduling. Right now it's Schedule 1. Will we reschedule to a 5, 4? Maybe. But I think we're going to see something in this administration in these 4 years.
I think it's really funny. And I do always joke in my topics when I give speeches or lectures about cannabis and cannabis claims and cannabis coverage. And I do mean cannabis as the whole thing, because I talk about CBD and hemp as well as marijuana, but I mostly focus on marijuana. Because again, I would love to put myself out of business. But I always say, I think it's funny how technically my doctor can prescribe me cocaine. And, so do I go to CVS to get that filled, or do I go to Walgreens? I mean, does Walgreens fill that? I mean, Blue Cross Blue Shield cover it? I'm not really sure. But marijuana, I can't get at all. And so I do find that I do joke about that with the scheduling aspects and whatever. Not to turn into a political post or kind of deal, but I do think that's humorous.
Honestly, I think that opioid addiction problem and the marketing of opioids has really opened the door of what other pain relief solutions are out there for us. And I think the marijuana is going to get a huge boost from replacing opioids to a more of a natural based pain.
Yeah. So going back, talking about insurance, what should the agents and the underwriters then know? We talked about the specificity of the language, but what is something that they should know? besides contacting you and me and hiring us to help them formulate their wording and their language?
I think they need to be real clear as to what their insureds are doing. There's so many, when we have this concept of the seed to sale. So like, they're like, okay, no, Canashore or James River or Topa, no, they have a policy to sell. Exciting. And it's in different arenas. They're not all marketing to all different aspects of the marijuana industry. But, are they growing? What kind of machinery? It's not just that they're selling a marijuana policy. They're selling it for a very, very specific reason. So if you look at manufacturing, you're looking at manufacturing defects. You have to look at the labeling. You have to look at all the different types of lawsuits that could stem out of the policy that they're selling that they may be responsible for at some point. So having a very frank conversation about what the insured is doing, for if it's let's just assume it's a CGL, a commercial general liability policy, so they know what they're issuing, and the insured needs to also ask the same questions and really get into what the exclusions mean. So it just needs to be a very open conversation on both ends. We get all this boilerplate language and we're so quick to sign. We don't want to go through all the terms and read it and go through it. It's so much in its infancy right now that I don't actually think it is boilerplate. This is novel. These are novel policies or new policies. So I think we need to dig in a little deeper than we typically do.
Yeah, that's what my husband happens to say, is that it's when I drag him to our conferences, he says it's really exciting because this must be what it was like for the automobile insurers in the early 1900s, because we're totally inventing everything. And you mentioned a good thing as the business people. So as an attorney, what do you want the insureds or the business people to know about their cannabis? And again, I mean that as the whole, hemp, marijuana, CBD policies. What should they be looking for in addition to their definitions?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I always ask them to look at is I think you're almost paying for looking at what's excluded versus what is included. Mm-hmm. So going right to your exclusion page and figuring out what that is. They should consult with an attorney initially and making sure that they're buying the right policy. There's a 2016 case out of Colorado where a company bought a marijuana policy. It was not a cannabis policy. It was a marijuana policy. And in the exclusions, they excluded anything that was federally illegal. Okay. Well, it was illegal in the state of Colorado, but not legal federally, so they denied coverage. Ultimately, the Supreme Court of Colorado called BS on that, and they did have to pay out. So it's just real important to look at all the language in there.
Yeah, and that's actually what I'm looking forward to, everybody doing there, because I don't know of any claims that are working right now in regards to bad faith claims handling with marijuana, because I think everybody's scared of filing lawsuits. So I'm actually surprised to hear about that. But I agree. I think once it becomes legal, there will be a lot more lawsuits. And why don't we just chop that off at the knees by doing these? Of course, I'm preaching to the choir. I know I am.
There is a 2020 lawsuit involving a marijuana business and business interruption, a COVID matter. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's amazing, because usually they were listed as essential businesses. So I'm really glad that.
Yeah. Again, for your listeners, we kind of got thrown a bone. The industry did that. They were essential. They could stay open during COVID, but they couldn't get any of the monetary resources that were available. So that was really kind of the balance here. But we have at least one company, most likely wasn't a dispensary. I need to get some more details on it. But I think we're all waiting to see how this business interruption is going to play out in every sector, not just the marijuana sector. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
And I think there's a public policy push for payment. There is in Washington State for sure. It's going to go up here. So we'll see what happens nationwide.
Yeah. So finally, another hard-hitting question. What are the most comfortable pajamas to wear while working from home?
Oh, yeah. Right now, because it's 13 inches of snow, I like something with like a little cashmere, a little wool, something very soft, especially on the inside. Yeah. Very expandable. I'm still in post-COVID, so
Yes.
Elastic waist is very important at this point.
Very, very good. Yes, I've got the drawstrings. Yeah, and in Kansas, we're having that Arctic blast that is coming down right now. Full disclosure for my 0 viewers, because we have 0 viewers. I just, FYI, nobody's going to see this. Is we shoot these videos like well in advance so that I can edit it and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, so just to the internet out there,
Yes.
it's like -10 degrees right now in Kansas, and it's snowing. So yeah, I've got my nice thick robe.
Yes.
I've got flannel on, and yeah.
Got my Ugg slippers.
See, yeah. I'm not going to show you my work slippers because they're like ladybugs. And it's just like, yeah, anyway. So Melissa, I know you're busy, and so I'm not going to keep you any longer. Is there something that you would like to plug before you go?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're in the industry, thinking about the industry, curious about the industry, want to know more about the industry, contact me. My personal email, because it's fun, is Harleys and Heels, because I love motorcycles and I love shoes. harleysandheels@gmail.com. You can always reach me there. I'm happy to answer any questions people may have.
Cool. Great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and talking with us. And it was really, really informative. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Bye-bye.
This week, I discussed cannabis and cannabis policies, which means marijuana, hemp, and CBD policies, with Melissa Roeder. Every claim is different, and every insurer has different protocols for handling losses. However, this being in the litigated world we're in, see below for some legalese. Few claims go to a jury trial, and picking the expert who has been deposed the most or who's gone to trial the most may not be the correct expert. Failing to have a second set of eyes on the claim in order to save some expenses isn't always the best way to resolve a loss. As an expert witness and a former claims adjuster, I'm sharing my experiences in the art of adjusting. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your time.